Now, for the past decades, Janis Sharp has faced a constant battle to stop her son from being extradited to the United States. Her autistic son, Gary McKinnon, faces 60 years in an American prison after he was able to hack into US military computers.
Well, this case will be heard at the High Court today. We'll be talking to Janis in just a moment, but first a reminder of her fight for her son. She's fought for more than a decade against the power of the US government.
I'm worried, scared.
They say her son is an enemy of the state, accused of hacking into America's most sensitive computers. She says Gary was just a curious hacker.
We can't deny the fact of what Gary McKinnon is accused of doing.
Do they want the first computer hacker ever to be extradited to be a guy looking for UFOs?
She's taken his case to court after court.
It's a disgrace, and they should be highly embarrassed.
To stop her son being tried as a terrorist. Janis, nice to see you again. You're regular on our programme. First of all, how is Gary doing at the moment?
Incredibly bad. It's difficult to explain the stress, the constant terror of 10 years, and it gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on. Gary sits in the dark all the time with his cats. He's in terror. I wake up in terror. I go to sleep in terror. It's so hard to explain how difficult each day is when it's been 10 years of never knowing and endless worry. Being worried for 10 years is hard.
We've got a two-day court hearing now. Just explain to us, in a nutshell if you can, where we are and what this hearing's about.
Basically, it was all about medical issues because Gary has had about 6 medical assessments, actually several times over by 6 different doctors. And the most recent in 2012 have said extreme suicide risk and now unfit for trial because he's so bad. That's happened this year. So basically we want the Home Secretary to make a decision. Today the doctor, Dr. Vermeulen, is going into the court and he's a Home Office approved expert who's assessed Gary. There's also one called Murphy who's a Home Office appointed one, and when he assessed Gary he said extreme suicide risk when he saw him face to face. So hopefully the judge will say he's had enough. This has gone on for 10 years, it's too long. Theresa May has to make a decision based on the evidence as it stands.
Has the appetite for extradition receded at all, Janis?
Well, yeah, I think it has. Keith Vaz was in America with the Select Committee, the Home Affairs Select Committee, and he came back and said there's no appetite to extradite Gary. 2 weeks ago, a top defence expert called John Aquila, he is an advisor to President Obama and to Donald Rumsfeld, and he's a cyber war expert, and he said to prosecute Gary McKinnon is ridiculous. There's one person left who wants Gary extradited. It's a Home Office advisor who was the same advisor through the last government, and he wants Gary extradited because he said not to would set a precedent.
As if you needed it, I guess that's given you fresh impetus to carry on this fight.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. That's not justice. It can't be decided on. It couldn't set a precedent. Gary had been to a neurologist when he was 16. He was again years later. He was losing his mental faculties. His grandmother was in a mental institution for 50 years and died there. There is so much evidence that cannot be disputed that it could not set a precedent by any means.
And you've always accepted, and Gary has accepted, that by hacking into the computers, he did wrong, but it wasn't for any sinister reason with his illness.
Well, it was absolutely wrong. It was from a dial-up connection more than 10 years, almost 11 years ago, and he left cyber notes saying your security is awful, and does a terrorist leave notes telling you that you've got no security? No, it's absolutely, of course it's wrong, and all we've asked for is for Gary to be tried here in this country. We're not saying don't penalise him, try him here. And in actual fact, he has been penalised because his life has been destroyed and he's lost 10 years of his youth.
How are you holding up, Janis?
It's very difficult because everyone else is falling apart. And my husband's health has gone downhill. He's afraid he'll have a heart attack before this is ended. Gary is in a worse state than ever. It's very hard, but I'm determined. Gary would not last 5 minutes in a different country, never mind a prison. He never leaves the UK. He doesn't travel. He only stays in the one area. He can't be away from home.
We hope you get some resolution, Janis. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you, Janis.
Thank you.
Should we head over to Los Angeles now, where